Right, folks, welcome here to another episode of the Soul Sessions. I'm your host, Soul, but get ready to be extreme, get ready to bleed, get ready to have your fucking gums bled, because with me today is Andrew of Bleeding Gums Wrestling. Welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's my absolute pleasure, pal. But obviously, as I ask every guest has a story, and every story has a beginning. Andrew, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
Mine, oh, Jesus Christ. Would have been 1996. This is weird. It's like the first ever wrestling match I saw was in ECW. My dad was tape trading, and it would have been before I even saw WWF or anything. It was 911 and Rey Mysterio against the Eliminators in a tag team match. And Rey Mysterio went 911 shoulders, and they did a sort of chicken fight in the middle of the ring. So it was my first ever exposure to wrestling was ECW in 1996. Which is a bit weird. And then I've obviously I'd sort of like lost touch with that and got back into WWF and then got back into ECW. But yeah, that was the first ever thing I ever properly saw, I think.
I mean, hey, it's a hell of a way to start, my friend. Start with an ECW. Fuck it, that's a way to start. Obviously, I wasn't around back then, so I didn't know what the whole. But I've heard about ECW from the grapevine and everything. But for someone who pretty much, lived that experience, what is the ECW hype? Was it just overblown? We tell nowadays, or was it truly massive back then?
It was massive. I mean, I would have only been like 7 at the time. But even like with my dad getting like tapes and stuff, and even by the time I was like 10, 11, they used to sell fucking VHS tapes in WH Smith of all places to get ECW. And it was massive. And then for seeing it like sort of be revived in the WWE, WWF with the one night stand things, like there's obviously like a market for it. At least there was back then. But yeah, it was a huge thing and a huge reason for people like Sabu and everything sort of like basically made the Attitude Era. I hate using that phrase, but if it wasn't for people like that and like chairs, tables, blood, violence, I don't think WWF would have went up the way. So it was.
No, of course, absolutely. I mean, obviously, people like to say ECW led over to the Attitude Era. Don't barf too much. I know you don't like the phrase.
I just hate that phrase because it's like at the time we never called it that. It was never called the Attitude Era at the time until after the fact. I don't know.
Do you think it's maybe just people now have had so much of the PG product, they look back and give it a nice nickname and like, take me back to the old days. I want the nostalgia back.
I remember it was like Vince McMahon, or it would have been John Cena, said ruthless aggression. And then suddenly that whole like period was ruthless aggression. But that he just said that once. And then suddenly that was an entire era of it. I think it's kind of, I don't know, it's weird to just sort of define like however long that Attitude Era was, like what, 5 years with just like one little phrase, because there was so much more to it than just like one little thing.
No, absolutely, of course. And obviously, touching on ECW a bit more, I mean, for my first exposure to the company was from the Rise and Fall of ECW documentary that WWE produced. Yeah. And I feel like I always go back and watch that every couple of months just because it's such a good documentary. I mean, from yourself, Andrew, that whole documentary, do you think that's an essential part of ECW's history?
I would say that you'd have to watch it, but I think that even today, this is a plug that's got nothing to do with me. The guy that sort of founded ECW before Paul Heyman came about, Todd Gordon, just released his book, his autobiography. So I'd probably go back and I'd read that. And he's done a couple of shoot interviews. But that documentary that you've seen was huge, and it was like a big thing for the rise and fall of ECW. But I think that it's with WWE's hand over it. It's like it's not an actual full sort of thing. There was an ECW show. What was it called?
Hardcore Homecoming.
Yes, the Shane Douglas did that, and then there was like a sort of documentary DVD on that where it was like Terry Funk and stuff we're talking about. I think that's more a sort of, it's not official because they can't call it ECW. They're not even allowed to mention the letters in the thing. But I'd say that that's probably better. But the one that you've seen, the one that you're talking about, is very, very good. But it's still kind of got WWE's reins are pulled in and what people can and can't say.
As a fan, what elements do you think they missed out the most that was quite essential to the company's history?
I think there was just certain people that they could have interviewed, and there was like certain people like, I mean, obviously they had Taz and they had Raven and Dreamer and stuff, but I think that for having them on that documentary, anybody that was like a WWE fan were like, these guys are just jobbers. Like, it was kind of like if you were watching like Just Incredible or Tommy Dreamer and you were like a WWF fan, you were like, these guys are getting beat on heat every week. And then you see this documentary, you're like, oh my God, like they were actually somebody, but WWE's kind of pushed them so far down that if you weren't like an actual fan of ECW, you'd think, why are they even on this type thing? But I don't know, it was a decent documentary though.
No, of course, and obviously from that we get the one night stands, the 2-1s, and then obviously WWE, ECW with the Zombie, the New Blood, the Rag Vince. Special times for people, Andrew. I want to know, as a fan, seeing what some people call a bastardization of the original concept, is it heartbreaking?
It was heartbreaking for me that they even brought it back at all, because it was just kind of like you're bringing it back just to shit on it. Like Vince McMahon won the belt. I mean, to be fair, watching back now, those things are hysterical. Like the Zombie and Vince McMahon, he's wearing his do-rag and he's beating Bobby Lashley for the belt. And if you go back now, you can sort of see like a bit of like, there's humor in it. But at the time, if you're a fan of ECW, you're like, what the fuck are they doing? They brought in the Big Show. Like, it was horrible, horrible TV. And like, yeah, it was a very 2000. The first One Night Stand 2005 is a very good show. The second one's, yeah, it's got a few good matches on it, but yeah, the ECW WC, what was it? WWECW was, yeah, it was trash. But it was the sort of thing where somebody like CM Punk got his first sort of start in the company from then and sort of went on upwards. So I suppose it kind of had some merit, but
Yeah,
it
of
made
course.
me feel bad for all the guys I liked.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're thinking of all these guys having, who are good talent, and then just getting squashed, and then you would see like Team 3D, they would leave for Impact, Tommy J would go, even Sabu and all that. Just Sandman, leaving it all behind. I mean, I would say one shining spot of it as well. Obviously, you mentioned Punk. I would say Christian as well when he came back and he won the title for twice on that show.
He's doing great now. I think Christian right now is my favorite Christian that there's been. he's
Really, the whole dad gimmick,
yeah, I love him. I think he's a very underrated heel. It's completely off topic, but I think that yeah, you're right. When he was ECW champion, the only thing I hated about that is that belt is horrendously bad looking.
Oh, aye.
Silver belts, I don't get it. A belt should be gold, and it was like a silver. It was disgusting. But Christian was great, but the belt's horrible.
Yeah, no, that belt is a travesty. I mean, the only thing about it I remember is Ezekiel Jackson's like the last ever champion for ECW because he beat Christian on the last ever show, which I don't really get. Why the fuck would you do that? That's just a
I can't even remember how long ECW, WWE ECW even ran for. It can't have been that long. A couple of years?
4 years maybe.
Something like that. I remember there was the originals were at WrestleMania
25,
24,
maybe it's one of the 20s, definitely.
when it was those guys, and I think that was sort of the tail end of it. And then obviously you're saying like Christian, Ezekiel Jackson, and stuff, and it was just a waste of time. And then later on, I think pretty much NXT took over the role of what they wanted to do with it, but it was their own thing. It wasn't just shit on an ECW, but
It's history at the end of the day, my friend. It's history. But obviously, going back to yourself, Andrew, obviously, how did Bleeding Gums form? What was it, the desire to create this?
The sheer stupidity. Well, hopefully not. No, it was like during COVID, I started doing like a YouTube channel, like what yourself, you do yourself. And it was, a lot of people will say that COVID was shit, and it was really, really bad for a lot of people. But for like creatively and having time to actually do something that you want to do, I thought it was amazing. So I did like a YouTube channel, and I did like highlight videos and everything like that. And after COVID, I ended up going down south to go and see Rise, go and see TNT. Shout to the Deathmatch Outlaws. Danny Douglas asked me to help out a few shows for Rise, like light tubes and building barbed wire boards and saw boards and all this crap. And I was just like, fuck it. I want to start my own thing up here. Through Danny Douglas and through Rise and stuff, I've gotten to know people like Michael Caden and Big Joe and things like as actual friends, because I've been to so many shows now. And I was just like, I'm sick of traveling down south. I want to have deathmatch wrestling here, and there's pretty much, I think it'll do well because there's a complete massive gap in the market for it in Scotland because there's nothing like it. Like down south, you've got three main companies: Kumite, TNT, and Rise. Scotland, you've got nothing really. I mean, you've got ICW do like King of Insanity, one match every couple of months or whatever, but it's not like an actual deathmatch company type thing. So that was the idea. It was just basically to do my own thing and give it a try and see if it works.
I mean, hey, it's a good thing to do, and take that passion and make it into something physical. But I love what you said about a gap in the market, because, you know, as you said, I can't think of anyone that really does these types of matches, and there's definitely a crowd there for them. Why do you think no one's ever touched upon that until yourself?
That's a good question. I'm quite glad nobody has. But I think, I don't know, I think it's to do with a lot of, even you'll know yourself from like going to a lot of Scottish shows. I think that like 95% of it, aside from like a couple of shows and mainly ICW, is all family friendly wrestling. And I think people just think that it won't work, that there isn't a crowd for it. I think that obviously like ICW like sold out the Hydro years and years ago, and I think that people want to be safe and just keep doing what's kind of working. Because I mean, a lot of shows these days, I was at like FCW and I was at FPWA, and they both had really big crowds at it, and they're both family shows. But I just think I don't actually know why people haven't tried to do it. I think it's just even for myself, there's a lot more probably goes into it. Getting the light tubes and building barbed wire boards and even getting cactuses that I've got sat over there. As opposed to just like actually running like a show. Like obviously a show is like obviously stressful, but there's a lot more to a deathmatch show weapons wise than there is actually a normal show. And I think a lot of the time it's not financially feasible for people to get all this stuff. But who knows?
Hey, you never know, my friend. Obviously, I know obviously you've got a big show coming up in November, which is going to be your debut thing happening in Edinburgh. And I had Alan Smith, who's the owner of Discovery, and he talked about getting venues in Edinburgh was quite hard because he was trying to sell wrestling to them. Was that the same for yourself, pal?
Oh yeah, it's it was horrible. So the venue that I'm in just now for the first show is the Summer Hall, which is the Dissection Rooms of the Summer Hall, which is a very good name for a deathmatch show. In the Dissection Rooms, which is an old university building. But that was venue 30 of 30 venues that I went into. And it wasn't even so much the fact that people weren't up for putting wrestling on. It was more just the fact that so many of these venues are too small to put a 16 by 16 foot ring in, to have people there. And I don't know, that there's not a lot of venues in the centre of Edinburgh that have the space for you to do stuff and have crowds and things. So it was, and it's particularly expensive because obviously it's the same as any, it's like a major city.
Yeah.
But a lot of places said fuck off straight away. And I was like, okay, no worries. But especially because it's like a new thing. And if I'm going to be doing my first show. But the people at Summer Hall, it's like a very like arty venue. They use it like for a lot of fringe shows and a lot of like weird, strange like arty stuff. They were like, yeah, fine, do what you want. I was like, okay, fine by me. They might hate me after the event, like, but no, but yeah, he's very, very right. There's in Edinburgh, it's very, very difficult to find something that's like that, and even try to get stuff on certain nights because most people want to run like wrestling on a Saturday night when everybody's off work and stuff. But most places that you could use on a Saturday night have got bands on or they're nightclubs and they're busy. So it's just trying to find somewhere. Glasgow, I think, would probably have a lot better places. But Edinburgh's got a few. I've been very, very lucky so far to actually get the Summer Hall.
Nah, it was very good for you, my friend. I mean, we're kind of are an artsy city here, obviously, with the Fringe. I mean, who knows? Maybe we could see you run the Playhouse one day. That'd be an experience.
I think for myself, this is just thinking in the future. The only other place that I'd want to run that I think would look fucking cool for a deathmatch show would be the La Bella Angela. I think that would be because of just the situation that it is. I think that for the sort of wrestling I like deathmatch wrestling, over 18 stuff, it looks better if it's in a bar, nightclub setting. And I think the Bella Angela would be a great fucking place to hold a wrestling show. But like Summer Hall is fucking excellent as well. Like, but I think that they're two places that they're both nightclubby gig venues.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you should go up to fucking Hive. It's already a shithole. You can't make it any worse.
We've already tried. They said no.
Oh,
the Hive said no. And I was like, what? I was like, you're saying, and they're like, nah, we can't have wrestling. I was like,
you're already a fucking shithole. What the fuck's that?
I would have thought that putting on wrestling in the Hive would have been a great thing. That would be like such a funny, like cool venue to put it on in because it's like essentially like a dump and it's got like a reputation of it. But they said no. I was like, whoa. I was like, have I done the wrong thing here to try and get this sorted out if the Hive say no to me? But I've been lucky.
Hive saying no. I've never fucking heard the words in my life. Oh god. I mean, our viewers here are probably like, what the fuck are they talking about? It's a shithole, viewers.
The Hive is a very studenty, rundown nightclub in the centre of Edinburgh. And when the Fringe is on, the Fringe Festival, it's open till 5 o'clock in the morning. And people would always say the Hive till 5. I've spent many, many nights in there myself. None which like actually remember, but yeah, the Hive.
Amen to that, brother. Amen to that. The memories are gone, but the scars, they remain.
Exactly.
But also, death matches as well. There's equipment, light tubes, barbed wire, steel chairs, tables, and all that. I want to know, getting all that equipment you said was kind of a bit expensive, but was there anything that you found trying to get was a bit tough?
The main thing is light tubes. Like at the minute in my attic, I've got 1,042 light tubes, I think, in my attic of all different sizes. I've got all them for free. But the thing is trying to get them and try to get like transport for them and bring them back. Because they're trying to do away with fluorescent tubes. They're trying to bring in LEDs and they're more difficult to get and people just bin them and stuff like that. But most of the stuff's been relatively okay to get, but it's there's been like stupid things. Like there's these little things called Kenzans. I don't know if you know what they are.
Not familiar.
Like, tiny little like spiked things that you use for like flower arranging, but people get them stuck in their heads and have to get them removed with pliers and stuff. But yeah, the light tubes is the main thing. So I'll say this on this: if anybody has any light tubes, bring them to the show, and if we don't use them at the show, use them for the next show, because they are like gold dust. If you want to buy a single tube from B&Q, you're looking at £7-8.
Oof.
And you're needing hundreds and hundreds of them. So yeah, tubes are pain in the arse, but most things are pretty easy, to be honest.
Yeah, I'll just get you on the Antique Roadshow soon enough if they're going out of style, and you can just pick them up from there.
It's genuinely going to get to a point where, like, obviously, I've got the logo on T-shirt just now. Like, my logo's got light tubes on it. There's like a big, massive, like, worldwide ban coming in on them just because of the mercury and stuff that's in them. So eventually, people are going to have to like buy them from overseas and stuff, which is going to be a nightmare. But we'll get through in the end. You
will do, indeed, my friend. You will do. Now, I want to talk about something about, there's a particular thing of death matches is that they'll have a custom where fans bring their own stuff. I had a deathmatch wrestler, Mickey Knuckles from the States, and she talked about some of the interesting objects, shall we say, that people would bring from, steel chairs covered in Taco Bell wrappers to vibrators and dildos that looked used because, customs, lovely. I mean, is there an item you think, nah, I ain't fucking touching that? Keep that to yourself.
I think that's a good question. I think that there's a lot of stuff that you can use that you shouldn't use, that you could use for an aesthetic that you wouldn't actually use. Like I've seen people that have like tried to take fucking guns and like machetes and stuff to shows in America. But Mickey Knuckles is a fucking legend as well. Dildos and stuff, that's going to happen because deathmatch fans are kind of weird. We've had ladders completely covered in dildos and dildos with nails through them and all sorts of stuff. I think the only thing I wouldn't want to use that I think it sounds weird because it's deathmatch wrestling is razor wire. I think razor wire is far, far too dangerous. I've seen it at shows, but razor wires to the point where like that's like could be life-threateningly like ambulance-worthy type stuff if it goes wrong. But aside from that, as long as people aren't bringing like machetes and axes and stuff, like more or less anything. With light tubes, you have to be careful that they're the right size, though. T12s are the big sunbed ones. The ones we've got in the UK are T8s, and anything under a T8 we won't use because they're too small and thin, and that could like be like artery sort of threatening. But I mean, aside from that, bring anything.
Fuck it. If someone brings a lawnmower, there's like, yeah, take that back to B&Q, mate, home base.
Oh yeah, that's the thing is aside from myself putting on stuff, it's up to the guys. Like some guys don't want to do certain things. Some guys hate fucking, those kebab skewer things that John Moxley uses.
Oh yeah, use it all in.
Hate them and they won't use them, but other guys will like do it barefoot and everything, and they don't care. So it's more or less up to the wrestlers. But if somebody's going to bring something like a lawnmower or stuff like, there's a chance we won't use it. So it'll just be a waste of time.
Oh, of course, absolutely. And obviously, this show I feel like is going to be stacked and brutal, shall we say. Obviously, it's Ultraviolence Referendum. Good fucking name. I like it. And obviously, putting that card together and contacting these guys, how was that whole process? Was it sort of a learning thing, or did you contact others and it's like, do you want to come on? And like, yeah, we'll come on.
Oh fuck, that's been weird because it's been like fantasy booking stuff in my head for like years and years and stuff. With like the contacts through like Big Joe and stuff and Michael Caden and like Iceman and things like that. It was quite nerve-wracking messaging somebody like the Iceman, who's a legend of this business, and him being like, yeah, sure. I'm like, what the fuck? Like the Iceman's like saying, I'm like, whoa, like that was quite nerve-wracking. But most of the guys are fine. I've met like a lot of people, and a lot of them are being fine. The only thing I will say for the Ultraviolence Referendum, I'm glad you like the name. I thought that was quite funny. Was 95% of the card are all English guys. There's not a high level of Scottish people on this show. As we go further into next year, I want to do more shows. There'll be more Scottish people on them, but I want it to sort of be like an English invasion, almost, of Scotland. But I mean, it's kind of been like, that's not been purposeful in a way. It's just been sort of circumstance because they're the people that I know. Whereas like in Scottish wrestling, I don't know that many people yet. Whereas a lot of the people I do know are all the guys from down south, and they're pretty much the best sort of deathmatch wrestlers in the UK at the minute. Because Scotland's kind of had a few, like obviously we've got like Jack Jester, had BT Gunn for ages, but a lot of the other guys, like, they're not really doing any death matches anymore. So the whole plan for it was basically just to kind of show Scotland, like, all these English guys are coming here to do it. Some people that want to do it and are good at doing it should, step up type thing.
Exactly. It's like, we're not going to let them fucking win. We don't have enough victories ourselves. They won't take our money. We can't get a referendum. Let's have a fucking win, boys. Come on, get your fucking act together. I mean, obviously, Andrew, we mentioned FBWA. I've had a close association with all the people that have trained from there, and I know you went to Truth or Dare as well. Good show as well. I want to know, is there anyone from maybe FBWA you think would be great in a deathmatch setting?
Oh God! See, now that's a difficult question because there's people like, I think this is the difficult thing. I think that to be a really, really good deathmatch wrestler, it's not just what we would call it back in the old days, maybe hack and slash. You have to be able to fucking wrestle. It's not just people beating the shit out of each other with tubes. I mean, it is, but there's more to it than that for the psychology and everything. So, like, somebody like even that main event, like Andy Robertson, Rampage Brown, and everything, I don't think they would want to go anywhere near deathmatch wrestling because they don't have to. But I'm saying that I think they would do quite well in that environment. I thought that whole show at FPW was quite good, actually. I'm just trying to remember who else was on the card. Jason Reed.
Jason Reed,
somebody who I think would be excellent as well. But for deathmatch wrestling, I think it's good to have characters that hate it. Because it's the easiest way to like get over is have somebody that hates doing death matches and hates, because that always works. Like in ECW, you'd have like the king of old school Steve Corino, who worked in ECW yet he hated ECW, and that's how he managed to get a thing. But yeah, there's I'm trying to think, the first guy that we're having on Ultraviolence Referendum is Dean Ford.
Yes.
Dean Ford works for various different companies. He's going to be wrestling Lou Nixon, and it's going to be Dean Ford's first death match. So he's going to be like the first guy that's sort of like a new guy that's going to be coming in, and that'll be interesting. And we've got thumbtack kick pads and Taipei broken glass fists and everything like that. But he's looking forward to it, but I think it's going to be a big thing for him against Lou Nixon, who's like traveling to America every month to do death matches. So yeah.
Well, I'm sure, Dean's been on this show, and I feel like he'll be a lad that will kick some ass, take some names, and then have a pint of tennis afterwards thinking, what the fuck am I getting myself into? But there's one match that I want to talk about. A fucking Scramble match.
Yeah.
Right. I know a Scramble match, but a fucking Scramble match? Come on, mate. What's the details?
I don't have anything against GCW, but GCW are probably one of the biggest independent companies in America, and almost every show, without question, they have a Scramble match, and a lot of the times it's the same like 4 or 5 guys in the Scramble match. So I just wanted to make a Scramble match and call it a fucking Scramble match, and we'll have that, and that'll be to open the show. I think that I'll be announcing the people who are in that quite shortly, but I think at the minute it's 5 people. It could potentially be 6. A lot of them will be people that nobody's ever seen up here as well.
Oh, can I get a bit of an exclusive, a cheeky exclusive? Just one name?
The only person that people might know from this is the first entrant at that is Davey Blaze.
Oh, okay.
Davey Blaze will be in the Scramble match, but that will be the first match to open the show. Because aside from I do want non-stop bloodshed and violence and everything, I'm going to have matches that aren't death matches on the show. We've obviously got Ewan Mackey is against HD Drake on the show. I love Ewan. Ewan stays in my hometown. And we've also got Nathan Black against Looking Sharp. And they are matches that aren't death matches, but like they're still all excellent wrestlers and stuff. So we do have like a little bit of variety, but a lot of it is violence.
No, hey, Bleeding Gums Wrestling sells itself. You're going to have some violence in there. But one thing I want to touch upon as well, when I had Mickey Knuckles on, I had Andrew Schultz, who's a deathmatch wrestler from the States as well. And I recently had Session Moff Martina, who's done some that extreme type matches. Yeah. Is they talked about like the stigma, the stigma of them doing those type of matches. And especially Mickey and Session Moff were saying female wrestlers doing that type of matches and having a stigmatization against them for that. Why do you think that is?
I think it's wrestling fans are very tribal with anything. I think a lot of people are fucking stupid as well. Whereas, like, people won't want intergender wrestling, and then they also hate deathmatch wrestling, and then they'll put them both together. Like Mickey Knuckles could beat the shit out of like 95% of the guys that work in the UK, regardless of it being a deathmatch or not. I don't know. I think it's a strange thing. Like deathmatch wrestling gets a stigma of being garbage wrestling and everything like that. But I've been in, it's weird, is if you're in a bubble of all the deathmatch people like myself, you forget that there's people out there that don't actually like it. And then you actually meet them and you're like, oh, fuck, like, yeah, these people actually hate deathmatch wrestling. You're never ever going to convert them or whatever. But I think people just, it's like gatekeeping in a way. They think that they know what's best and they think their style of wrestling's best. I love deathmatch wrestling, but if somebody wants to go and watch like strong style or just normal women's wrestling, whatever. But yeah, there's a lot of people do hate women's wrestling against guys in death matches, which doesn't make any sense. It's wrestling. At the end of the day, like a lot of there's a female wrestler in America called Casey Kirk who won ICW Olds Bard's American Deathmatch Championship, and she beat loads and loads of guys, and people were like really pissed off. I was like, she's as good as any of the other guys there. I don't know. It's a very sort of like sexist mentality, and I think that people are just like that with anything. It doesn't necessarily need to be wrestling. It's sad, but like these people usually get weeded out and don't end up coming back to shows, to be honest.
I mean, if the wrestlers are happy and they're getting paid, I mean, I see no problem with it at all.
Exactly.
People at this day and age. But obviously, kind of that hardcore style was maybe brought to the mainstream with AEW because when they had Nick Gage and Jericho with the Painmaker, we had Jack Perry and Hook at All In with the FTW Championship. Seeing AEW kind of bring that to the fold, everyone's seeing it. Is that kind of a benefit to the kind of style of matches?
That's a good question. To be honest, I think it's both. It's a negative and a good thing. My favorite wrestler of all time is Nick Gage. Seeing Nick Gage on fucking AEW against Chris Jericho using tubes and glass was fucking awesome. That's the only Dynamite I've ever stayed up to watch live. I was like, this is great. Like, it's a spotlight on deathmatch wrestling. And it was a really good match as well. And it was awesome. And that match with Perry and Hook as well, obviously, all the controversy sort of surrounded that with Punk and everything. I think it's a good thing for people to see it, but then it's also a bad thing because I'd say there's a lot more people that hate it than like it, and it just gives them more of a platform to shit all over it. Because it's never ever going to be for everybody. Excuse me, but I also think that the sort of point of deathmatch wrestling, maybe this is a bad thing, but maybe the point of it's kind of meant to be underground. It's meant to be niche, and it's meant to be sort of counterculture and against everything that's mainstream. So, like, bringing it to the mainstream kind of defeats the purpose of it, in a way. But seeing Nick Gage on fucking TV was pretty cool. Like, that was an awesome moment. Like, I know all the like wrestlers, fans, like promoters of deathmatch wrestling all watched that match. Like, we all stayed up and watched it, and it was great. But I do think it probably would do. Like, even that exploding barbed wire match that kind of finish. I think it probably does more harm than good. But at the end of the day, none of us give a fuck. We're going to watch it regardless.
True indeed. I mean, I still remember the Domino's pizza commercial coming up during that match as well. Everyone getting pissed off about that.
Great advertising. It was great advertising.
I know I felt a bit hungry for a pizza afterwards, after the bloodshed. So done his job.
Sells his own pizza cutters. I've got a Nick Gage signed pizza cutter through the room and stuff. But somebody must like him. Tony Khan must like him to do that. And John Moxley bringing out the skewers and everything. Were you at the AEW UK pay-per-view all in?
Indeed, I was. You can see the
I was there as well. Which I think that was my favorite match, obviously for like the deathmatch stuff. For that big, what was it, Stadium Stampede?
Yeah.
But like, I think that people even now online are like, John Moxley's going to fucking end up blading himself just like walking to the ring, and you're like, shut the fuck up. Like, people like blood. Like, I know people say that it should be saved for like special occasions and things like that, but people are bloodthirsty end of the day. So yeah, I do think AEW's doing okay. It's a lot better than WWE, I would say, product-wise. But yeah, I do think there's always still going to be a stigma against deathmatch wrestling.
No, of course. I mean, with WWE, I was annoyed with SummerSlam, like the whole tribal combat, and it was just an Extreme Rules match with no extra
sticks. The thing with WWE, I don't have anything against WWE. I know a lot of people hate it and hate AEW and everything. I just don't watch them. The last WWE show I saw was Money in the Bank because I was there, and the last AEW show I saw was All In because I was there. Like, two of my friends are huge fans, and they watch everything. Like, one of my best friends watches Raw live.
God, how could you?
3 hours. Yeah, I know, which is a bit strange. But like, for me, I'll watch them at their houses. We'll have drinks. We'll watch the pay-per-views. But I don't watch like weekly WWE TV because there's too much independent stuff to watch. But I don't have anything against them. They make tons and tons of money. But I know a lot of people hate both of them from like either side.
No, of course, absolutely. I mean, it's loved. Deathmatch wrestling is pretty much loved as well. But I want to know, you mentioned Nick Gage, maybe one of your favorites, but there's many others, and some people like to say the Mount Rushmore of things. So I know what to ask, mate. The Mount Rushmore of deathmatch wrestling. Who's the four?
Easy. Nick Gage, Danny Havoc, Jun Kasai, Masashi Takeda. The best of all time. Takeda and Kasai are still wrestling now, which is crazy. Jun Kasai is probably the best deathmatch wrestler in the world. Danny Havoc died a couple of years ago, tragically, and I think he was like 33 or 34. And then Gage is kind of on the downstep of his career, but Takeda and Kasai like wrestled each other last month. Sheets of glass, knives on a board, light tubes. It was awesome. But yeah, I'd say those four wrestlers, if people go out their way to watch any of their matches, you're not going to be disappointed if you like deathmatch stuff.
Well, hey, everyone loves a deathmatch, it's all good and down. But I kind of I'm a title guy. I do like my titles, and deathmatch and extremes had their association with titles. So I want to know as well, Andrew. I want to know top 5 kind of hardcore extreme titles from WWE to WCW, because they had one, which was fucking bish. ECW, TNT, GCW. Give me the ones. Give me the list. Give me the 5.
The designs.
Designs, my friend. Designs.
For me, I'm going to be use the term a mark for Japanese wrestling. They do the best of everything, whether it's be New Japan or Deathmatch or whatever. The Freedom's World title, the top, probably the best looking. Second would be the Big Japan Wrestling World title. Leighton Buzzard's over there right now. Give a shout out to him, wrestling for Big Japan. I don't think he's doing death matches, but he's off there doing like a tour for like 6 months. So I'd say Freedom's Big Japan, the old CZW World title, 3, 4. Oh God, that's a good question. The current XPW King of the Deathmatch title, and 5. Fuck me. Just to make it more, I'd probably say the hardcore title, because I always loved the hardcore title when I was younger, because it just looked like a piece of shit, and that's how they treat the division for most of the time.
True. That hardcore title is something. I mean, I remember, JBL had like a Texas version of it, and there was a license plate version for Tommy Dreamer. I mean, if you had to say, Andrew, taking a current WWE title and bin it and smash it and make it a new hardcore title, which one would you want to do?
Oh, God, the new hardcore title. See, I was just going to say bin the fucking tag team belts, but not because I hate tag team wrestling, just those belts are fucking horrendously ugly looking.
Yeah, they are.
I mean, do they still have the 24/7 belt? Bin that.
Well, Nikki ASH missed the bin. She popped it in, so it's just sitting in some arena somewhere.
I didn't know that. Oh, that's a good. I mean, if I can say the tag team titles, I still want tag team titles, but the fucking tag team titles in WWE are fucking horrible looking, and they've had them for ages. They've redone all their belts, apart from the tag team titles. They look like shit. They look horrendous, and they've still got the. I liked it would have been like 2002, 2003, or whatever. Like Raw and SmackDown had separate tag titles, but they kind of looked okay. But the current WWE tag team belts like make me like retch. They're fucking horrible looking. Most of WWE's titles are actually okay. They all kind of look the same. The IC and the US title look obviously different, but like all the women's ones and everything, that new world title's fucking ugly as well. And yeah, in fact, the new world title, get rid of that and make a hardcore belt.
Excellent. Who knows? Cody Rhodes will win it, smash it up, throw it in the bin, and then bring back the Wing Eagle, and all the people will be happy.
Cody Rhodes doesn't win that belt, but it's all right.
Well, who knows? Who knows? But also, Bleeding Gums Wrestling, could there be a Bleeding Gums Championship? And if there is, how would you like it to be designed? Spinner? Just to
that's possibly a spoiler. There will be a belt at some point into the next year. It won't be at the first show, but into the next year, the plan is to do a couple more shows, but set them out as we're not going to be running every month. We'll be setting them out as like, every 3-4 months or something, there'll be a show. That's the plan anyway. And there will be a belt, a deathmatch title. And I've already got people that are potentially designing it. But that's too many spoilers, I would say. For things.
We have to keep some secrets away. We can't just load all quick.
A lot of the deathmatch belts that I like look kind of similar. Usually they'll have light tubes on them. They'll have something on them, but there's a lot of like cool fucking looking. That's always the thing I find strange about WWE is like their belts and their merchandise is shite in comparison to like a lot of like independent companies in England and in Scotland have got belts that look better than a major company's belt, and their merchandise, even just individual wrestlers' merchandise, looks better than some of the stuff you get in WWE shop, which I find strange. But that's the plan. Is eventually there will be a belt, a sort of main deathmatch belt for Bleeding Gums, but that'll be into next year.
Well, who knows what the future holds? All I ask is, if I get a replica, you could sign it. I'll get it up on the wall. I'll make it look nice and dandy.
There's a guy who does stuff for TNT. I'll send you his details on this. He makes little replicas for figures, and he does them for all the belts, and they're beautiful looking. So you should definitely get some of him. So he's got he'll have everything that you've got behind you, but like little replica hand painted ones for like wrestling figures. I'll send you that on Instagram.
Ooh, spicy. I'm loving it. Hopefully it won't break the bank account too much because it's already on the breaking end from All In. Because
I know it is.
Yeah, because that TNT title, I loved it. I bought it, but broke me.
How much merch did you get All In?
TNT title and a signed turnbuckle, if you can see at the top there.
Oh, Jesus Christ. I saw the queues. And I was like, I ain't buying. I spent enough money on beer at the thing.
Oh, God, yeah. $11.50 a pint, you can fuck off England.
It was the only thing that, this is not for, doesn't really matter, but the only thing I found strange was there wasn't like an actual smoking area in Wembley. Not necessarily smoking is a very disgusting bad habit, but when we were there, I asked one of the girls who was serving at the thing, I was like, where's the smoking area? She was like, if you go out the front door, you can have a smoke at the front, but you can't get back in. I was like, what? I was like, what? The biggest stadium in the UK? I was like, it's a bit strange, but
it's like, take your poison. Do you want to smoke or do you want to miss the show? It's like,
so I was having to sneakily have them when something was happening and hiding behind people and stuff. But the experience.
An experience indeed, my friend. Experience indeed. But Andrew, mate, it's an absolute pleasure here having you on the Soul Sessions. But before we go, I want to propose a future situation. Let's say a year's time you're having another show, and it's for this maybe Bleeding Gums Championship.
Yeah.
And you get to book whoever you want to go for it. Say anyone you want, States, UK, anyone. I want to know, who would you want to fight for that championship if you could book anybody?
Anybody, as in two people or as in somebody coming in to challenge for it?
Two people.
Two people, I would be the same answer I gave Jun Kasai or Masashi Takeda. Have them come over to the fucking UK. Never, ever, ever happened before. I don't think it would ever happen. Rise have got Abdullah Kobayashi, who's a big deathmatch wrestler from Japan, coming in February over next year. So I'll be going to that. But yeah, Jun Kasai, Masashi Takeda in the dissection rooms in Edinburgh. I think that you wouldn't need to announce anything. You would that would be a sort of dream come true type thing. I don't know how easy that would be to to pull off. If money was no option and anything could happen, yeah, Takeda against Kasai in the dissection room.
Well, who knows? Maybe what the future could hold, and that's something we could see up in Edinburgh. Have that, then have a cheeky pint in Hive, because that's where the night always fucking ends in our city.
Exactly, 100%.
Good heavens galore. But my friend, thank you very much for appearing here on the Soul Session. But before we go, obviously, tell us more, how people can go and buy tickets to see your first show, my friend.
So the best thing to do is just go to our website. It's www.bleedinggumswrestling.co.uk. That's got links to all the merch, links to all the tickets. That's got links to all our social media and everything. Because I would just read out all the social media, but everything's got different names. So bleedinggumswrestling.co.uk. Just go on that, and that'll have links to everything you could possibly want. And it's got all the match cards and all the graphics. And we've got T-shirts, and it's got tickets for sale there as well. And then we've also got a student discount on tickets as well for people who are wanting to come up to the show. So if anybody wants that student discount, just message the page, bleedinggumswrestling.co.uk, and they'll be able to get you a discount code for that.
Oh, excellent. And I know viewers in this modern day and age, you're all lazy fuckers. You want your Netflix series all at once. So I'm going to put the link to the website and the Instagram in the video description of this. Click it, follow the Instagram, see what's going on, and the website. Click, get your tickets, and attend this show. Well, thank you very much, my friend, for appearing here on the Soul Sessions. I would say the whole like and subscribe thing, but YouTube's been around since 2005. You know the whole fucking shtick. I ain't got to repeat it. You know. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in for another episode of the Soul